Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. So I came across this document called Microsoft DDoS Protection Response Guide posted on March 4th by the Principal PM Manager of Azure Networking. I came across this when I was doing the security video earlier, so I just wanted to kind of go over it. It's more of a discussion that I'd like to have with other professionals, other folks that work in Azure, because I am an Azure man. I am an Azure administrator. I'm working on getting my solutions architect certification so I can do more. So I will know more about Azure and be able to make more intelligent decisions about the platform. So I just wanted to cover this. It's more of a conversation that I wanted to have. So if I can throw out an idea and someone give me feedback through comments, I would appreciate it. But I'm just going to go through the document, tell you read my thoughts. No, I'm going to read the document, tell you my thoughts, and then hopefully get some feedback. Maybe, maybe not. This video will probably fall flat on its face. But what else is new? All right, so Microsoft DDoS Protection Response Guide. Receiving distributed DDoS attack threats. DDoS threats have been on a significant rise in frequency lately, and Microsoft has stopped numerous large-scale DDoS attacks this last year, so we're talking about 2021. This provides an overview of what Microsoft provides at the platform level, information on recent mitigations and best practices. Cool. So if you follow Azure any and you follow Azure Security, there was a report released back in January that kind of broke down all the DDoS attacks and the hacks that were taken against Azure platforms. Um, so I'll probably do another video on that one a little later, just to kind of go over it because there is some really useful information there from a security standpoint, from a blue team standpoint. So let's just keep on going. So the Microsoft DDoS platform. Microsoft provides robust protection against Layer 3 and Layer 4 DDoS attacks, which include TCP SYN, new connections, and UDP ICMP and TCP floods. Of course they do. They should just drop packets. Um, should. There are different ways of handling it. You want to handle the initial burst of traffic, so you want to be able to burst your infrastructure up to handle it. Then as you become aware, because you don't know what's happening until things start kind of popping off. So once you're alerted to the DDoS attack, then you need to start responding. So blocking IPs, just flat dropping packets, things like that nature. And then we'll go further into the incident response in this document for Azure specifically. So DDoS protection utilizes Azure's global deployment scale. It is distributed in nature and offers 60 terabits per second of global attack mitigation capacity. So I wonder if that's per tenant or if that's just overall. I don't know, but that's a question I would like to ask. All Microsoft services, included Office 360, Microsoft 365, Azure, and Xbox, are protected by platform-level DDoS protection. Microsoft's cloud services are intentionally built to support high loads, which help protect against application-level DDoS attacks. So hopefully, when you're designing these applications that you roll out, so if you're running an Azure infrastructure that has public applications on the internet, or um, however your infrastructure is built, if you are public facing and you have an open IP address, you have open URLs, open to the internet APIs, you definitely want to have them protected by a WAF or a layer 7 firewall, application firewall, whatever you want to call it. You definitely want to have that implemented there just to kind of help out. But we'll keep on going. All Azure public endpoint VIPs, virtual IP addresses, are guarded at the platform's safe thresholds. Protection extends to traffic flows from inbound from the internet, outbound to the internet, and region to region. Okay. Microsoft uses standard detection and mitigation techniques such as SYN cookies, rate limiting, and connection limits to protect against DDoS attacks. That's an important one. You kind of want to cap throughput from IP addresses. To support automated protections, a cross-workload DDoS incident response team identifies the roles and responsibilities across teams, the criteria for escalations, and protocols for incident response handling across affected teams. Microsoft also takes a pretty active approach to DDoS defense. Botnets are a common source of command and control for conducting DDoS attacks to amplify attacks and maintain anonymity. The Microsoft, I gotta say this with a deep one. Microsoft Digital Crimes Unit (DCU) focuses on investigating, and disrupting malware distribution and communications infrastructure to reduce the scale and impact of botnets. So far, so good. So that's kind of an overview of what the platform does, right? A few questions on there that I would like some clarification on, but then again, I'm also not a I'm an administrator. I'm not an SME. I'm not a subject matter expert in Azure, and I'm definitely not a programmer for Microsoft working on Azure. So let's keep on keeping on. All right, so at Microsoft, despite the evolving challenges in the cyber landscape, the Azure DDoS protection team was able to successfully mitigate some of the largest DDoS attacks ever, both in Azure and the course of history. Really? So last October 2021, Microsoft reported on a 2.4 terabit per second DDoS attack in Azure that was successfully mitigated, and since then mitigated three larger attacks. Looks like the next largest attack this came in November 2021, throughput of 3.47 terabit per second. That's 340 million packets per second. I'm targeting as an Azure customer in Asia. So it's more than likely India, because India has seen the largest uptick in DDoS attacks, at least in quarter 4 of last year, according to Microsoft's own report. Um, this is believed to be the largest attack ever reported in history. It was a distributed attack originating from approximately 10,000 sources and from multiple countries across the globe, including the United States, China, South Korea, Russia, Thailand, India, Vietnam, Iran, Indonesia, and Taiwan. So very large botnet there, very large botnet. Turn this down a little bit here because I'm getting a little too loud for the mic. All right, so you want to protect your applications in Azure against DDoS attacks in 3 steps. Customers can protect their Azure workloads by onboarding Azure DDoS Protection Standard for web workloads. It is recommended to use the Web Application Firewall in conjunction with DDoS Protection Standard for extensive Layer 3 to Layer 7 protection. Remember, this Azure we're responsible from Layer 3 to Layer 7. All right, so step 1: evaluate risks for your Azure applications. This is the time to understand the scope of your risk from a DDoS attack if you haven't done so. So you want to do a threat analysis. So you want to figure out what is vulnerable. Yeah. You want to figure out what's vulnerable and this take steps to kind of mitigate your risk. So you want to mitigate your risk here as much as possible. Yes. All right. All right. So if there are virtual networks with applications exposed over the public internet, we want to strongly recommend enabling DDoS protection. Yes, you should also have a WAF in front of that. And this I would recommend a CDN because there's several things you want to have in front of that because you shouldn't be exposing um, the virtual network just straight up to the internet. There needs to be a block. Um, Unless there's like a web server app. Well, even in a web server application, you want to have something in front of it, preferably like a CDN with a WAF and all that good stuff. Uh, we strongly recommend enabling DDoS protection for those networks. Resources in a virtual network that requires protection against DDoS attacks are Azure Application Gateway and Azure Web Application Firewall. Uh, Azure Workload Balancer, virtual machines, Bastion hosts, Kubernetes, and Azure Firewall review DDoS protection and reference architectures, blah, 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 blah. To get more reference architectures to protect resources and virtual networks against DDoS attacks. So that's step 1. So basically, figure out what's open. Are you exposing your internal network to the web? So we don't want to be exposing our internal network to the web. 2, validate, test, and validate. obviously. Validate your assumptions. Planning and preparation are crucial to understanding how a system will perform during a DDoS attack. Essential that you understand the normal behavior of an application to prepare for the attack, or to prepare to act if the application is not behaving as expected during DDoS. You want to monitor your critical applications that mimic client behavior and notify when anomalies are detected, referencing monitoring diagnostic best practice. So basically, up to this point, you just want to be following um, solutions architecting best practices when implementing stuff in Azure. Because we don't want to be, you don't want to stick a VM just straight up on the web. That just a base example. You don't want to stick a VM. You don't want to stick anything straight up on the open web without any access control, even if it's meant to be a public, um, a public accessible application or resource. Finally, test your assumptions about how services will respond to an attack by generating traffic against your application to simulate a DDoS attack. Don't wait for it to happen. So simulate one. We've partnered with Ixia, I think it's Isha, a key site company providing self-service traffic generator called Breaking Point Cloud that allows Azure DDoS protection customers to simulate a DDoS. All right, so you want to simulate a DDoS against your own system to find the weak points. And the important part about that is you can identify the weak points before it happens and implement automated solutions. So you can create this playbook uh, when a DDoS hits you. So now we're starting to build DDoS playbook, and you can um, build out an automated response. And that should be built into the application. That's what a security analyst should be doing for you. Hopefully. If you don't have a security guy, please get one. Or if you're not, yeah, you need to be testing your applications, and you need to be looking for the holes. You need that active threat hunter. Otherwise, especially if you have a large organization, like if you're running an app on Azure, you need to be threat hunting to make sure nothing is, like, you need to be hacking your own stuff. So if you can find a hole before a malicious actor finds it, better to be a white hat than a black hat. All right, so step 3, you want to configure alerts and attack analytics. Azure DDoS protection identifies and mitigates DDoS attacks without any user intervention. See, or automated playbook. To get notified when there's an active mitigation for a protected public IP, we recommend configuring an alert on the metric under DDoS attack or not. DDoS attack mitigation alerts are automatically sent to Microsoft Defender for Cloud. You should also configure attack analytics to understand the scale of the attack, traffic being dropped, and other details. So, here's a basic lookout of your workbook. Yours should look similar. Of course, your resources will be different, and so just kind of be aware of that. So here's your best practices. You want to provision enough service capacity to enable auto-scaling to absorb the initial burst. You want to reduce your attack surfaces, reevaluate public endpoints, and decide whether they need to be public accessible. Most likely your endpoints don't need to be publicly accessible. There is a way to get through it safely. Monitor, CIA and the AAAs. You want to follow that. So more than likely, your stuff doesn't need to be on the open internet. There is a way to do it securely. If applicable, configure a network security group to further lock down services. If IIS is used, leverage IIS dynamic IP restrictions. IIS to control traffic from malicious IPs. That is also something you want to do if you're hosting your own web server that for some reason is on the open internet. I don't know why you would do that. Please don't do that. Set up monitoring and alerting if you haven't done so already. Some of the counters to enable are TCP connection established, web current connections, and web connection attempts. Optionally, use third-party security offerings such as web application firewalls or inline virtual appliances from the Azure Marketplace for Layer 7 protection that is not covered by Azure DDoS and Azure WAF. And most importantly, when to contact Microsoft support. During a DDoS, if you find that your performance of protected resource is severely degraded or the resource is not available, Review step 2 above on configuring monitors to detect resource anomalies. You think your resource is under DDoS attack, but DDoS protection service is not mitigating the attack effectively? Call Microsoft. You're planning a viral event that will significantly increase your network traffic. Alert Microsoft support. For attacks that have critical business impact, create a Severity A support ticket to engage the DDoS Rapid Response Team. And we definitely want to look at this later, but we're going to have a separate video on that, the 2021 Q3 and Q4 DDoS attack trends. So we're going to talk about that in the next video. As always, you guys have a good one. Take it easy and catch you later.